Universal knowledge. It came as quite a surprise when I realized that after making more than 100 videos that I haven't ever talked about universal knowledge as its own video. So I'd like to talk about it today. Universal knowledge, how to access it, what is it, and how do we have access to it? But we all do. So let's talk about that in this video. My spiritual awakening started when I had access to or heard the voice of universal knowledge. At least that's what I called it at the time, and I still do, even though you could probably identify it as the hators, which is an extra-dimensional collective similar to the Pleiadians or the Arcturians, except that they were incarnated here on Earth during Egypt's Golden Age, and I was incarnated among them, which is where I learned how to do the soul essence activation and many of the other activations and energy healing work that I do now. Okay, so it doesn't really matter who the voice is. That's definitely what the voice of universal knowledge told me. When I was asking, who is this, who is this, who is this, I would often get, it doesn't matter. All that matters is the healing. But what does matter to us in this video today is that we all have access to it. I've made some other videos about talking to the master or talking to the voice within. The master is something that I call any voice that you get to speak to that has much more high vibrational frequency knowledge than you have. So how do we talk to this voice? Who is it? Why do we have access to this? Well, we have to step all the way back to understand that we are all one, that there is only one of us, and it is all of us combined. This concept is difficult for it to get our 3D duality heads wrapped around, but ultimately, you have been me and I have been you. We have been each other over and over again in all of existence. Every bird that you might hear in the background here, we have all been that bird. We have all been every being that you've ever seen anytime at any point in your existence, and that includes the higher frequency beings. And I say it in the past tense, even though it all happens simultaneously in the infinite now. Okay, well, that's a lot of heavy stuff that maybe makes sense and maybe is hard to wrap your head around, again, because we're so convinced that this duality experience, me and you are separate beings, is so palpable. There's so much evidence to support the idea that we are not each other, that this physical reality separates us, that the air between us, and in this case, you're watching a video, so there's lots of air between us. You're watching this digital format creation, and you can easily look at that and say, well, I didn't record this, so I don't know what he's talking about. So we really have to step outside of the limits of our three-dimensional mind, which isn't necessarily an easy thing to do. But when we do that, we can look at everything and we can say, I am all of it. I am all these trees that are behind me. I am this shala that I'm standing in at the Seven Spring Retreat Center in Maryville, Tennessee. I am all of the existence that has ever existed. I'm all those clouds. I'm the sky. I'm you. I am your family. I am everything that you walk on, everything that you consume. You are that and I am that. Okay, so when we can start to understand that as our reality, then we can understand that if we are all of these things, then we have access to all that information. I have access to everything you're thinking about, everything that you've gone through, everything that you've experienced. I have access to every dimension that has ever been created. Who created it? We did, right? All of us together created it. Not in this consciousness form, not in this limited duality form, but in the form of all. So that means we are constantly tapped into that universal knowledge. Because we're so familiar and accustomed to seeing things as separate and seeing each other as separate and being mad at the guy who cuts you off on the road and say, that's not me, what a jerk, I would never do that. Instead, when we can see that actually we are all of those things, we are our frustration, we are their frustration, then all of a sudden it kind of makes sense, right? Like, oh, okay, well, I can tap into all that. And these limited senses, our sight and our smell and our hearing, they don't really give us that information, but that's not their purpose. Their purpose is to help this very specific being survive. Being able to see, being able to hear and smell allows us to avoid certain death, essentially. So we have to go beyond all of that. We have to almost shut those things down, or if we don't shut them down, at least be able to ignore them to some degree. We have to step into an all-new version of ourselves. And this version of ourselves is not the one we're carrying around in these meat robots. It's not the one that's looking around all the time and saying, I've got to do the laundry, and I got to get to work, and I got to do all this stuff. That isn't the version of you that's going to be able to tap into universal knowledge. The version of you that can tap into universal knowledge is one that comes from a peaceful place, from an observer standpoint. And when you do look around, right now I'm in this beautiful natural environment, I can start to step into that observer mode. I can hear the crow. I can see the trees and hear the crickets and watch as birds fly around. Now I'm not necessarily just being this 3D person trying to survive. I'm actually observing the world around me. So now, what's the next step? It's observing the self. Can you observe yourself rather than be yourself? Can you watch the incredible movie that you have signed up for, that you have pre-scripted, essentially, before you were born, and observe yourself as the main character of that movie? What's the difference between watching a movie and acting in it or being in it or living in it? Is when you watch the movie, you are not necessarily yourself. So what position do you take when you watch the movie of your life? Your higher self, your soul self. And you look at this 3D version of yourself without judgment. You just say, wow, look at that being. Look at how hard they work, how hard they try. Look at all that they've been through. Look at all these interesting experiences. I can't wait to see what the next one is. From that perspective now, we can really start to see all of the world and ourselves as the same thing. So you can go into a meditative state if that helps you. But the thing is, you can enter into this of self-observation mode at any time. You could be right in the middle of an argument with someone else, and you can take a look at yourself and say, wow, look how angry Xane is right now. Isn't that funny how angry he is? Like he's taking this thing so seriously that he has to get into an argument with this person. He forgets that we live in an illusionary world, that all of this stuff is him. He's arguing with himself, essentially. How interesting that he does that. The more that you practice this sort of thing, the closer you get to the universal knowledge that I'm talking about. Okay, so knowing that you are just an actor in this movie, knowing that all the world is you, and knowing how powerful you are because you are the creator of all. You have access to absolutely everything that you've created. Right now, you've taken a step from that and said, well, I want to pretend as though I'm limited. I want to pretend like I'm this Xane character who goes on YouTube and talks about this stuff. I want to pretend that I'm this character who is birthed by his mother. I want to pretend that I'm this character who's going to die and cease to exist through a process called death. I'm going to pretend that I have emotions. I'm going to pretend that I'm going to take all of this very seriously because it's life or death. And there's something valuable and beautiful about that. And that's why we're here, to experience it. However, if we step back and say, this is all temporary, this is all illusion, and actually I am all, then you can tap into that universal knowledge. Now, when we get into the specifics as to how to do it, I hesitate to give you specific direction for that because everybody accesses it differently. Some of you will just be able to close your eyes and go, okay, give me universal knowledge. I want to know things about the Akashic records. You'll get it. Other people, you'll try that and nothing will happen. Or you'll talk to the voice in your head and ask questions. Did I have multiple lives on this planet? Did I have interactions with people that I know now and on the Pleiades when I was a Pleiadian? These are the types of questions that you can ask, and maybe you'll get answers to. Maybe you won't. Maybe they come to you in visualizations. You could stare at someone, stare at a picture, kind of blur out your eyes for a second, and all of a sudden you'll know all kinds of things about them. Like I said, for everyone, it comes differently. So the next step is to know that you can. You know that you have access to universal knowledge. You wouldn't be watching this video if you couldn't. And because I am you and you are me, and I have access to universal knowledge, you certainly do too. So now it's about discovering your method for access to universal knowledge, and I'll be giving an activation that will help you step into that a little bit more, to trust in it, to feel the vibration of it, and to allow it to happen. Another great way is to use kinesiology or muscle testing or a pendulum. I've got a video on a pendulum. I don't have any videos on kinesiology, but it's easy enough to look up. You can test to see yes or no answers to your questions. You can even do it by standing. You can ask a question. You can say, my name is Xane. Oh, notice I didn't ask the question. I stated a true or false statement. My name is Xane. And you'll find that after you practice this a little bit, you will lean one way or the other. For most people, if you say a positive statement, you lean forward. My name is Xane, and I'll lean forward because it's a yes. If I say, my name is Hildegard, then I might start to lean backwards automatically. The same is true of kinesiology and muscle testing. There's wonderful reasons why that works. But what are we doing there? We're accessing universal knowledge. It's very important that you follow the very specific instructions as to how to do muscle testing and kinesiology, because there's a bias involved. This brain loves to be a know-it-all. It loves to interject and go, oh, well, I know you've been on this planet 35 times. Like, what? Why would the brain know that? Brain doesn't know that. But you can access that through universal knowledge. So the power of being able to do that is immense, and you have it. It's just a matter of trying it, trying different ways, trying different methods, and seeing what works for you. Sometimes it just comes as a knowing. You're just like, I wonder how I should handle this situation. Bing, and you'll just suddenly know, and you'll go, oh, right, that's how I should do it. Do you give any credit to universal knowledge when that happens? Probably not, but you could, and you could discover that you actually have access to that. The difficult part of that is simply knowing whether that's the brain trying to generate an answer, or if you're really truly tapping into universal knowledge. There's a signature associated with whether that information is from the brain or it's from universal knowledge. There can be an emotional bias that you'll feel. There will be an emotional pull that feels like desperation or an attempt to be smart enough, low self-esteem. Something like that could be associated with the thought, and then you can start to say, wait a minute, that feels like the brain. But when you say it and it just suddenly comes to you and you're just like, well, yeah, of course that's what it is, you're more likely to be speaking to the voice of universal knowledge or accessing universal knowledge. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a nice primer as to where you can go with this and how amazing life can be when you tap into that universal knowledge. If you're going to make a decision, you can always ask that voice about, hey, does this serve my highest good? You don't ask, well, is this going to turn out really well for me in the fact that I'm going to make lots of money on this deal? That's not going to give you the best answer. But if you say, this is for my highest good, then it doesn't matter how much money you make or what kind of experience you have, because it might be negative, but the growth that you experience from it is so incredible, then that is going to give you more information. If you just say, should I do this? On what? That's a judgment question. And what do we know about universal knowledge? What do we know about the higher vibrational beings? There's no should. There's no judgment. Everything is valid. Everything is amazing. Everything is an opportunity to grow and expand. So just asking, should I do this? That's not going to help you. But if you ask something like, will this serve my highest good? Then you're probably going to get an answer that you can really hone in on, you can really take advantage of, and you can really have an incredible ascension process in your life. Okay, so with all that said, what I want to do now is do an activation to help you tap into the truth of your ability to talk to the voice of universal knowledge or just receive universal knowledge in any way that you might be able to. I'm not going to distinguish that while we do this activation. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to help your right brain believe more that you can, in case any of you have any doubts. And then I'm going to open you up from an energetic standpoint so that you are more likely to receive that information. So go ahead and close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath. And relax as you exhale. Feel yourself sinking into your chair, to your bed that you're laying on. Really feel the pull of gravity on your body and the support from the chair or the building or the bed or whatever it is that you're standing on, sitting on, or laying on. In all cases, you are being hugged and supported. The earth is pulling you close, and the objects that you rest your body on are keeping you supported. Okay, universal knowledge. First of all, I want you to picture yourself in nature. You're walking through a forest. You're hearing the bird calls. You're hearing the crickets. You're noticing the butterflies. You're seeing the path carved through the forest. You're noticing the trees and how warm they feel, how wise they are, the leaves rustling in the breeze, and all of the wonders of the forest all around you. Then I want you to picture your awareness moving up, away from your body, up into the trees and looking back down. Everything that you see here includes those trees and those birds and those crickets and you. This is who you truly are. You are the observer of all of existence. And so from here, it's way easier to perceive the idea that you have access to universal knowledge. The way my activations work is I'm going to say breath in. And when I do, you're going to take a nice big deep breath. You're going to hold it at the top. And you're going to wait for me to say a loud, explosive awaken. And then you can exhale. Helping you recognize and realize and see that you have true access to universal knowledge. Breath in. Oi! Excellent. Okay. And now I want you to picture yourself receiving it. So now we take your awareness from the trees and we bring it back inside your body. And I want you to go deep inside you. I want you to notice and feel as though you are looking from your heart. You're seeing your internal organs. You're seeing your rib cage. You're seeing your blood vessels. You're seeing all that you truly are as a 3D being. You can move anywhere in your body and observe the internal workings of your body. And then I want you to go deeper and go right into the middle of your heart, where you're not able to see anything except the love that you feel for all that exists. From here, you can ask, you can request, you can open yourself to, you can allow yourself to hear, to know, to see universal knowledge in any form that it might present itself to you. Breath in. Oi! Excellent. When you're ready to see yourself as this incredible being who knows all, anytime you want to. When you're ready to see this about yourself, to know this about yourself, and to do this, then you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for participating in that activation. It feels really good to be able to do these and continue to do these after more than a year of working on all that I'm doing for the world. It's an incredible time for me right now because I've been able to grow and expand the program Detached, where I'm helping people overcome negative entity attachments and PTSD and depression and all these different things that are weighing them down in this world. And we're seeing incredible results, and it just feels amazing to do something like that. It's also amazing because I've taken over the reins to cosmic television. Hopefully by now, by the time you watch this, you'll know all about it. But we're in the very early stages of building out this new streaming service. It'll be very similar to Gaia, but only the highest vibrational content possible. There's so much going on right now. And so it means the world to me if you would like and subscribe, if you would comment and tell me your experience and how you speak to universal knowledge. All of this helps me build more and more this approach that I'm taking to help the world waken up and have incredible, rewarding, fulfilling, and thriving lives. Everything that you do with the silly YouTube algorithms helps me on that end, because more and more people are going to be able to learn about me and what I'm doing. And so I appreciate your assistance in that. So thank you once again for watching this video. I love you unconditionally, and I'll see you in the next one.